Kirsten. I'm calling to order the Town of Lewisboro Planning Board meeting for Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Our state legislature passed a temporary amendment to the open meeting law that will allow municipal boards to meet via video conference until January 15th, 2020. Our board agreed to meet via Zoom. We are live streaming to YouTube on the Lewisboro TV channel, and this will enable viewing by the public. No one is at our in-person meeting location at 79 Boughton. As you've heard, this meeting is being recorded. Kirsten has confirmed that the YouTube feed is active and working, and that the meeting has been duly noticed and legal notice requirements are fulfilled. Joining me on this Zoom conference from the Town of Lewisboro are members of the Planning Board, Charlene Delicato, Jerome Kerner, Greg LaSorsa. Maureen McGuire is absent tonight, but we do have a quorum, and thus we can conduct the business of the board and vote on any matters that come before the board. Also with us are the planning and wetland consultant, Jan Johannesson, and our counsel, Judd Siebert, as well as the planning board administrator, Kirsten Conrad, and I did see the CAC chair, John Wolf. We do intend to post a recording and a transcript of this meeting to the town website, and the Zoom video will also be available on the town's YouTube channel. We do not have a public hearing scheduled for tonight. Therefore, we do not expect to take public comments at this meeting. Members of the public can always express their views by mail or email to planning@lewisborogov.com. Okay, we ask any applicants that are not currently engaging in dialogue to mute their lines. This will help everyone hear over what we've come to know as inevitable background noises. And as we go through the meeting, to ease the recording of the votes, I will poll the board members individually. Okay, with that, let's get started. Our first item on the agenda is a decision, calendar number 07-21PB. This is the Cross River Pharmacy, 890 Route 35, Cross River, New York. This is an application for a change of use. And we saw this application at our September 21st meeting. We did refer it to the building inspector and Westchester County. It's been to Westchester County Department of Health. We do have a memo from the building inspector noting that the application is zoning compliant. We have received a business plan. And with all that, I think we have also have a resolution prepared, which has been circulated to the board. So I'll ask Jan to take us through the highlights of the resolution.
Yes, this is before the board for waiver of site development plan procedures triggered by a change of use application going to from the physical training studio to pharmacy use. There's adequate parking from a zoning perspective. They proved that out. They're going to the Westchester County Health Department for change of use. There are no physical improvements being proposed on the outside of the building. We had a prior application for Cameron's on the same parcel, and the board approved some modification to the accessible parking spaces and the outdoor seating area for Cameron's. But this particular application has no additional site improvements. All of our comments have been satisfied, and it's a pretty pro forma resolution. Be happy to answer any questions, but I believe everything's in place.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions on the resolution or this? Okay, with hearing none, I would ask for or look for a motion to approve the resolution for the waiver of site plan and change of use.
So moved.
Thank you, Charlene. Can I have a second?
Yes, I just needed to unmute myself. I'll second it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, so let me just, well, first ask if there's any questions or further discussion. Okay, let me poll the board. Charlene?
Aye.
Greg?
Yes.
Jerome?
Aye.
And I also say aye or yes, so the motion is approved. And so I think we're done with that unless there's any other questions.
You have any questions?
Okay, thank you all. The next item on our agenda is calendar number 06-02PB. This is Oak Ridge Gardens, also known as Laurel Ridge on 450 Oak Ridge Common, South Salem, New York. This is a request to amend the final subdivision plat approval and the resolutions, which a number of them have been amended to date. We did discuss this at our September 21st meeting. I think we have a resolution that has been circulated to all of the board members previously, and I will ask Judd to take us briefly through that resolution.
Thanks, Jan. And it's actually an amendment to not subdivision, but to wetland permit, stormwater permit, and most significantly a site plan approval that was issued and has been through multiple iterations of amendment over time. At the last meeting, the applicant by Mr. Sirganano, who is on, had requested a modification of one of the conditions contained in one of the amending resolutions that dealt with the timing of when certificates of occupancy should be issued for the 46 units that are part of this project. There is a standing condition that required that basically an as-built and a number of site improvements be completed before the 41st, as opposed to the 45th or 46th, the FANA unit. Before that C of O is issued, and the point was made that it may make more practical sense from really a kind of a planning and real world perspective to restage that or retime that so that the C of Os are issued before the 45th of the 46 units are subject to C of O issuance. So that's what the resolution provides. And if Jan perhaps can provide some input as to why that makes sense. I think we discussed this at the last meeting in September, and it does from a number of practical perspectives.
Yep. And just to confirm for the board, I can attest that the water and sewer services have been installed, inspected and accepted by the health department. And from a practical perspective, not putting down the final course of asphalt and not doing the final landscaping in front of the units and not conducting the final wetland mitigation until you're further down the road with the last of the units, makes sense. I think it's an industry standard. And I'm completely fine with the proposal and the way Judd drafted the language. I think it makes sense. It safeguards, the board and the community to make sure everything gets done, but it's the timeliness of it is, I think, more appropriate with the last unit as opposed to the 41st.
Thank you, Jan and Judd. And thank you for confirming. I think the big piece that we asked about last time on this was the condition of the water and wastewater, which was one of the numbered conditions, and whether that had been accepted by the Department of Health, and it has been. So thanks for looking at that. All right, so I would look for a motion to approve this resolution that we have.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Greg. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jerome. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll poll the board. Charlene?
Aye.
Greg?
Yes.
Jerome?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so the motion is approved. The resolution is approved. So thank you. Thank you, Judd, for drafting that. The next item on our agenda is calendar number 06-02 PB. It's also Oak Ridge Gardens, also known as Laurel Ridge. And this is 450 Oak Ridge Commons, South Salem, New York. This is a request for a final release of a bond submitted in accordance with the Smith Ridge Housing LLC security agreement for the construction of the water and sewer improvements that were to be conveyed to Oak Ridge water and sewer districts. So on this,
Yeah.
I believe, oh, go ahead.
Jan, if you don't mind, I'll jump. This kind of dovetails into the resolution that was just adopted. As Jan mentioned, there's been completion of water and sewer public improvements with regard to this project. And as a result, the applicant or the project, the owner has asked that a portion, not a complete or all of performance security that was posted with regard to these sort of public improvements associated with this project be returned. The planning board's authority to grant this request is really dependent on getting the town board to under the town code to authorize it to do so. And the planning board has to conduct a public hearing with regard to the release so that it can be advertised and anyone interested in the bond reduction can be heard. So what we need to do is we need to move this up to the town board so that they can then adopt a motion authorizing or delegating the planning board to hear the bond reduction request through a public hearing and then make a decision. So I think we've got kind of two things we need to do procedurally. One is to make a motion authorizing you, Jan, as chairman, to request from the town board the authority to conduct the public hearing and make that decision on the bond reduction request. And then anticipating that the town board will do so before our November meeting, just by consensus, if we can, getting this on the agenda for November for a public hearing.
Okay, so with that, thank you very much, Judd. I think the first thing then is to look for a motion to allow me to write a letter asking the planning board to empower us to hold the public hearing and to make a decision.
Town board.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
You don't want to ask yourself, Jan.
Okay.
I do at times. Okay, to ask the town board. Thank you. So I'm looking for that motion as described by Judd. Thank
So
you,
moved.
Jerome. A second? Oh, Greg. Okay.
Yeah.
Question on the second action.
Yes.
Should that also authorize the preparation of resolution for the November meeting?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think,
Good.
why don't we adopt the motion and then by consensus, we can get this public hearing scheduled. And you're correct, Jerome, we should probably get a resolution prepared.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second that is just on asking the town board to enable us to do this. So I'm going to pull the board on that one. Charlene? I saw a nod of the head. Greg?
Yes.
Jerome?
Yes.
And I also say yes. So we'll be writing that letter. Then, as Judd just suggested, by consensus, we can schedule a public hearing in November and ask for a resolution to be prepared pending the outcome of the public hearing and our final decision. So do I have consensus? And I think thumbs up are okay if everybody wants to just, yeah, okay. So we have consensus. And so we will be scheduling a public hearing on that. Anything further on this matter? Okay, then we do have a third item on the on Oak Ridge Gardens, or this is now Oak Ridge Common, but Bob Ebert is not yet able to join us, and he's asked us to defer that, so that is later on the agenda. The next item on our agenda is to consider some extension of time requests. The first of these is calendar number 03-13 PB, calendar 03-16 WP, calendar 19-21 SW, Silvermine Preserve at the bordering Silvermine Drive and Lockwood Road in South Salem, New York. This is an application for subdivision wetland activity and stormwater permits for the construction of a 13-lot subdivision. We got a memo asking for this extension. It said that it would be moot if we got the if they provided us with the final application. However, in discussing this, because we have not had a chance, we have received a application on October 7th, but we haven't had a chance to review it. So just in case someone should decide that the submission is not complete, I'd like to have a motion to extend this so that we are covered in case of any issues.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Greg.
Second.
Thank you, Charlene. So again, I'll poll the board. We need an extension of time.
Yeah.
I think we've been doing it. I mean, we have 90 days because we have the application should be sufficient. Is that changed?
Okay, I'll amend the motion to for a 90-day adjournment.
You still okay, Charlene? Seconding?
Second, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so any further discussion? Charlene?
Aye.
Greg?
Yes.
Jerome?
Yes.
And I'll also say yes, so the extension of time is granted, and of course, we'll review this submission at our November meeting. The next item on the agenda, I am recused, and I'm going to ask Jerome to take the lead on this, and I will shut off my video.
All right. So the next item is extension of time for calendar number 08-12 PB, Petroselli and Battaglia, Oscolita Road. And there's a request for a 90-day extension of time to the resolution granting preliminary final subdivision plat and negative deck. I see Michael Serignano here. You want to speak to that?
Yes, good evening. Good evening. This was on last month's agenda, but you put it over because there were some outstanding consultant fees. I believe, and Kirsten will correct me if I'm wrong, that my clients have taken care of those open fees.
Yes, they have.
Okay. Also, the clients have gotten an engineer, Michael Finnan, involved at Langen Engineering down in White Plains, who has opened up discussions with the health department. And I believe my client also requisitioned some of the original approved plat from Kirsten to get that into the hands of Mr. Finnan. So I'm hopeful now that they have a new engineer on board. The Petroselli firm dismantled or stopped existing after his death. So the children have gotten another engineer involved who's in direct discussions with the health department. So we're hopeful that things will move forward now, and we're asking for a 90-day extension.
Sure. Any comments from board members? None. So why don't we This would be by consensus, Judd, or motion?
Motion, yeah.
Motion.
I so move.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion for 90-day extension made by Charlene, seconded by Greg. Any further discussion, comments? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, let's do it.
Aye.
Poll, by poll,
Yes.
sorry. Charlene, yes. Greg, yes. Jerome, yes. Motion is passed unanimously.
So the 90 days run from tonight or from when the resolution is signed?
I think it's from the date.
the-
it was
The prior expiration date, Michael.
for our
Okay.
expiration.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
And thank you, Jerome. The next item on the agenda is calendar number 03-20 PB, calendar number 37-20 WP. This is for Gossip Brothers Nursery at 1202 Route 35, South Salem, New York. Application for a site development plan approval and wetland activity permit approval for an existing nursery. And I believe we have, yes, Michael, are you going to talk?
Yes, I'm here again. I think Billy Gossett and Tom Gossett are also participating, and they'll jump in if I can't answer any questions that come up. But I had requested for a extension of the 6-month time period in which conditions 1 through 9 were to be fulfilled. The open issue really outside of our control, and it still remains open, is the approval of the water system and wastewater storage tank through the Westchester County Department of Health. Tim Cronin's firm is handling this. They made a submission, probably 4 weeks ago. And I'm told this morning that he's hopeful that he'll have some feedback from the health department by the end of the week. That doesn't mean it'll be an approval. It could mean just a letter with more information requested. But in any event, we'll know more at the end of the week. But we wanted to get the extension, and the rest of the items, the rest of the conditions are really almost procedural or housekeeping, and we can attend to those.
Thank you. So do we have any questions or comments? I'd look for a motion to approve a 6-month extension, again, from the last approval date for Gossip Brothers.
So moved.
Thank you, Jerome.
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to poll the board. Charlene? Greg?
Yes.
Jerome?
Yes.
So, and I also say yes, so the 4 of us have agreed to say yes and to grant an extension of time to Gossip Brothers Nursery.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, I have not seen Bob Ebert join. Have you, Kirsten? Okay, so I think if it is all right with the board, we will move over that and keep going and then come back when we do have a rep that is on to address this. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is a site visit report for the calendar number 30-20 WP, calendar number 05-20 SW. This is the Stein residence at 51 Pine Hill Drive, South Salem, New York. And it's the application for construction of a single family house. So Brian Hildenbrand met planning board members Charlene and Delicato and me, as well as CAC members John Wolf, Sarah Coccaro, and Val Andes at the site, which is at 51 Pine Hill Drive at 9 a.m. on Saturday, October 16th, 2021. We walked in on the shared driveway, which is on the applicant's property. We saw 2 neighboring houses on the drive. We walked in along the staked driveway. We noticed a test pit that had been done for stormwater. The corners of the house were also staked. Brian showed us how far the easement for the electricity extended onto the property. A stone wall crossing the property roughly demarks the wetland area from the upland area. This site is somewhat constrained by the easement, by the setbacks, and by the wetland. The septic location is in the only area that seems to be available outside of the wetland buffer. Brian mentioned that he was looking at sliding the house further away from the wetland and looking at the resultant slopes for the driveway. We observed the location of the neighboring house, and we discussed whether headlights coming out of the driveway would hit that house. We also spoke about the number of trees which had to be taken down. We observed a large oak near the easement, which it wasn't clear if the house was moved, if the oak would be out of the area or not. We also crossed a gap in the stone wall, and we looked at the wetland area a little bit. And I think the other piece of information was that Brian did indicate that they plan to resubmit for the November meeting. I know Charlene, you were and John, you were there. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this report?
I think you covered it.
Okay, so that's the site walk report. Any questions from anybody else? So with that, I see Brian is on. Thank you for having us on the site, and we look forward to the resubmission.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from anybody on this? Okay, and I'm going to keep looking back to see if Bob Ebert joins, but I don't see him. So the next item on the agenda is now under the category of wetland permit reviews. The first item is calendar number 48-21 WP. This is the Clark Garage at 68 East Ridge Road in Wacabuck, New York. And it's an application for a detached garage, which has room for an apartment above it. And I am not sure who is on for this. Oh, okay. Hello, you're muted, I think.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Clark, and my contractor, Mike Wetzel, is also on.
Hello.
Hi, Mike. Okay, so we have received a revised plan for this. Do you want to screen share and put it up?
I can do
that.
I can do that. I didn't know if you guys did that or.
Well, if you can, that's better because you can take us through what you're showing, but if not, I think we probably could.
Okay, hold on.
Did you already do it, Jennifer?
I have it. I just have to figure out how best to bring it up.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
Very good.
I did it.
There it is.
Who did it for me? Thank you.
I think I did, didn't I?
Nice. Very nice. So the garage that it was originally a detached garage is now an attached garage to get it out of the wetlands. And we are not going to finish this space upstairs. It will have space, but we're not going to finish it off.
Okay, I'm going to say that I haven't yet seen any of this come up on my system. I don't know whether anybody else is having better luck, so I might have
You
to.
can't see it?
I could see it.
I can
Okay.
see.
That's it.
I think what I'm going to do is jump off and try to jump back on because the whole thing is frozen. So excuse me for just a moment. All right. If you can hear me, I am unable to get on. I will ask Jerome to lead this
Sure.
for a little bit, and I will do my best to come get off and get back on. Thank you, Jerome.
Sure. So you had made a statement, Mrs. Clark, about this being out of the wetlands. It appears to be out of the DEC buffer, but it's in the town of Lewisboro buffer.
Yeah.
Right, so we had met with you already, Jerome, about it, and we were in the 100-foot buffer the last time we came to you. And remember, we had talked about moving and getting out of the 100-foot buffer and getting the 150 buffer. So we've moved it to get completely out of the 150 buffer, or out of the 100 buffer and only into the 150 buffer. And the reason we attached it now is because the placement of it was going to look funny to get it only in the 150 buffer and not destroy the fields and the entranceway into the home. So that's why we moved it there, and it's still in the 150 buffer. We had also talked to Jan about the remediation, and we're actually going to move the driveway so it's completely out of the, almost completely out of the 150 buffer, only in front of the building. It would be, we'll swing in front of the house instead of where it is.
John, John,
Mr.
would you like
Clark,
to? Go ahead.
yeah, Mr. Clark, is this a different plan than we discussed? I almost, as you mentioned, I recall seeing a plan that showed the driveway almost completely out of the buffer, as you just indicated.
Yes, this one has the driveway. The driveway needs to be redrawn.
Okay, so just to reiterate what was just said, the last appearance before the board, the detached building, garage, and accessory apartment was in.
Jan, let me
Yeah.
interrupt. If you stop share, I could bring that one up. I have it on my.
I'm
Want to
not
stop
sharing.
share?
I'm not sharing anything, Drew.
Who is sharing now? Yeah.
I am, I stopped it.
Okay, let me bring mine up. Oh, yeah, here we go. That's the new plan?
Yeah,
No, that's the old plan.
That's the old one.
That's actually the second. We had an even older plan that was farther back in the 100-foot buffer.
yeah.
From,
The original plan that was submitted to the board and was reviewed at a prior meeting showed the building within 100 feet of the wetland, might have been even closer. And the board requested that alternatives be considered that would bring the garage further away from the wetland, which I know there's some confusion on the plans right now, but I did have a meeting with the applicant. They showed me a plan that had the garage within, the 100 to 150 foot zone, completely outside the DEC buffer, and the driveway outside of the town's 150 foot buffer. So I thought collectively that was a significant improvement from the prior plan. And I was, supportive of
Right.
that plan. I'm not sure. I don't think this is the
Well, this plan is in the packet that was sent to us. And it's essentially shows the driveway outside of, except for a small apron, right in front of the garage here.
Mm-hmm.
But,
was
right,
the,
so we want to still swing the driveway, maybe not out as far. The driveways, we're going to keep the driveway out as a 150-foot buffer as much as possible. The problem with putting the building where it is on this plan that you're sharing, Jerome, is that it kind of destroys the rock wall, the natural rock wall that's there, and it gets closer to the field. And it really is, I mean, we've staked it out over there and it just didn't look correct. So we decided we'd swing it back and attach it. The one I showed you is the most recent one. We had submitted that. I guess you just didn't get it yet. Or, I mean, I know we printed all of the 4 copies and I think emailed everything over, but maybe it just didn't get to you yet. So I can
think
reshare
that's-
that other one if you want to see it again.
Yeah, why don't
Yeah,
you
I
do
think that's correct because we had not I know I hadn't seen the other one as well. So yes, please
Well,
share the,
So
The
what
one-
what are we looking for this evening? Just a sense from the board of how they feel about this. Oh, I see it's attached here. Yeah.
Right, and the driveway slopes a little. We're gonna come back out in front of the house to get it out of the one. So really, the apron still be in there, but we want to get it. We want to get it out of the 150 buffer as soon as possible and come in front of the house, almost like that other drawing. We really need to stake it out and get the best feel for the line to get back out to the road. But we want to keep it out of the 150 buffer as much as possible. You can see that with the dotted red line. So it'll sort of come right out in front of the house, almost like a little courtyard place in front of the house where the driveway would be.
Jerome, I think the purpose of tonight's meeting was, my office did provide a technical memo with the original submission. We requested, wetland mitigation plan, stormwater management, et cetera, et cetera. But the applicant wanted to provide an updated kind of concept plan that was responsive to the board's comments at the last meeting, kind of before they went down and got into the weeds with the technicalities. So we decided to put them on the agenda so that they could propose
Correct.
this revision. And then if the board was in agreement, they would take the next step to finalize the engineering comments. And as I indicated previously, I think they've gone a long way, not only trying to move the garage further away from the buffer, but, to get the driveway almost entirely out of the buffer, I think is a significant
Right.
in the right.
Yeah, we want the driveway out of the buffer. It just didn't.
No, I get it. I understand.
We
Okay,
don't
so-
like we like the way it looks better out of the buffer. So
Well, I just have one comment, which I think I like the attached plan in that it concentrates the impact on the site into the residential, closer to the house, and an area that's probably already been impacted due to the original construction. So I would prefer this plan. That's my.
So-
Right, and so, I don't know who's looked at the property, but where the new garage is going is actually where the old driveway really is.
Yeah.
So, we're
Yeah.
really not disturbing
Disturb.
much new soil in any of the 150 buffer, other than we're gonna be returning some of it to natural,
Right.
Yeah.
foliage.
The removal of the driveway is significant, and that will get restored and that buffer will be enhanced.
So I guess I have a couple of questions on this. We did send a version of this to the building inspector. I believe we sent the previous one, the one that Jerome showed. So, and maybe we should wait until the driveway gets finalized, but I think we should probably resend it, but I think we should wait maybe until we see updated plans. The second kind of question I have, so I can, because we haven't seen this, I see that there's a box on the left side that says existing fields and then a box above it. Is that the expansion area?
Correct.
Okay, good. And so this is adequate spacing. I'm sure you've done that to make sure we're not anyway imposing or impinging on the expansion area here.
Correct.
Thank you.
Janet, can I just mention, I'm looking back on my notes from the August meeting. At that time, the applicant indicated that it already received a ZBA approval for, at that time, an accessory building over 600 square feet. And the board referred the application to the building inspector for bedroom count and review of the accessory apartment regulations. The accessory apartment regulations might be moot to the fact that the applicants indicated that they're removing that from the application and the second floor is going to be unfinished. So I do believe that there was some cursory review of the application by the building inspector because it went through the ZBA process, and that you referred it to the building inspector for bedroom count and review of accessory apartment regs. So maybe we should just hear from the applicant to reiterate that the apartment's no longer proposed.
Right, and I don't know, I can quick go over, we had talked about the reason we were gonna put an apartment there was, and the reason this whole thing was going on was Jennifer's mother was living in the house and they wanted to move close to be next to her. Now that she's no longer living in the house, she's been moved to a facility. There's no reason for the accessory apartment, and they're just looking to get the garage and some storage space, and then make the house, they're gonna end up renovating the house and living in that.
The question I would raise though, will there be a sewer main and water and electric? Obviously, it's going to be electric there. But obviously, what we're approving is a plan that could be adapted at any time by another owner if this were turned around and sold. So I think the question is moot. If there is a sewer line underground tied in septic or some other septic plan intended. Could you address that, Michael?
Well, so it's a 3-car garage. The only thing, it wouldn't be underground sewer, it'd be, it's attached to the house now. So I guess if somebody wanted to do it, they could run a sewer line through the house from the 2nd floor up there. But like I said, we're not looking to make an accessory apartment or an additional bedroom. We're just looking for the 3-car garage and, the storage space. And, I can show, I don't know if you saw the other parts of the plan. We've actually made the upstairs. Let me see if I can share the other parts of it. We've changed the entire upstairs, so it's not even as big of a living or call it a little bit of storage space. It's gotten a lot smaller. Let me see if I can share this.
Yeah, so this is new. I think what we're really focusing on is the location.
Right, that's what we're looking for, is the location of where it is now.
And I
Well-
think we'll wait for the final plans and then see what else needs to be done with this. I do know that, for example, the building inspector had a memo that said it requires 4 parking spaces,
I was just
which a
gonna say.
3-car garage, and I guess that extra space. But I think at this point, I think it's better. Go ahead. Who was talking?
Well, it was me. I mean, those comments are going to go away now that this is no longer involving an accessory apartment.
Correct.
So I think, from what I understand, that the zoning review has already been done. And the board was more curious about the accessory apartment and the health department regulations because of the additional bedroom with the accessory apartment. That's off the table. This is now really a 3-car garage, attached 3-car garage that's, well within the setbacks. So I'm not sure that we're going to hear much from the building inspector now that the accessory apartment's off the table.
Right, the
Right.
only thing we're at now is being in the 150 buffer, correct?
Right.
That's where we're at the planning board.
So I do think this is certainly better than the first plan. I would like to see, I don't know if it's possible to get the driveway out of the buffer more with the garage being so far in it. I don't know whether Greg or Charlene, you have any comments on this that you would like to share? No from Greg?
No, thank you.
So like I said,
All right,
Sorry.
Jerome.
I have one more question. I'm looking at item 5 at the building inspector's letter, and he talks about another accessory building that's on the property that has started construction without a permit. And I wonder does that show on the plan you just had up? And is that still going to be continued? Is that additional storage space? Sounds like a lot of storage.
so the accessory building that the building inspector is talking about has been there since the house was built. It was at one time a horse barn. And we decided to fix it up because it was basically falling down during COVID. And during COVID it was hard to get a hold of the building department. So we started stuff and it turned into stuff we needed a permit for. We are now in the process of getting a permit with the building inspector. But it was a building, like I said, it was a building that was already there. We
Right,
didn't
but a
change it.
bath-
I'm going to show you the
Apparently a
screen of it
bathroom
on
was
here.
added.
What'd
Is
you
that
say,
correct?
Jerome?
A bathroom was added?
There was already water to the building, and we would like to just add a sink and a toilet. But we're not looking to make it living space. But like I said, it's not a new building. It's completely, I'm going to share it. It's on the same plan. I'm going to share it right now. Did I share before? Oh, there it is.
What will it be used for?
Office. Studio.
See it there on the plans?
Oh, yeah.
That's where it's been there since the place was built.
So where is it off to the lower portion of this plan as we're looking at it?
Correct. See existing outbuilding?
Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, so I think the sense that I have gotten from the members of the board is that they are more happy with this location and would encourage you to develop this application to present to us as soon as you can get it to us for the next meeting. I believe October. Oh, you said it's already been submitted. Our next submission date, if there is anything else that you need to have, I believe for the next meeting is October 26th.
Right, so we'll just get on board with Jan. We'll get him everything he needs. We'll move the driveway, and then we should be able to and we'll answer some of those other questions that were asked between the building department and get some of this stuff cleared up, correct?
Okay, and I think actually it would be helpful to have a current conditions plan so we can see where the driveway is now. I'm not sure that we.
Definitely, we'll put that on there.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
No.
So are but we're good with where the building is.
I think it's much better. I mean, I'm not going to say that we'll see what happens with the driveway and everything, but I think this is I think the consensus of the board is that this is a better location. It's been moved out of the 100-foot setback, although it's still within the 150, but it's being contiguous with the house. It has less potential disturbance than if it was out somewhere else.
And then what is the process for a driveway moving?
Well, you wouldn't be able to move the driveway until you had a wetland permit from the planning board for everything else.
Okay.
So you'll end up, theoretically, if the board looks upon your application favorably after you respond to the comments, you'll end up with a wetland permit.
Okay.
And the wetland permit is going to potentially allow you to construct the addition and also relocate your driveway and restore the old driveway to, native vegetation. So nothing can be done. You couldn't start relocating the driveway even with absent a wetland permit.
Okay.
How many parking spaces are necessary for this
If there's-
project?
If there's only the single family house and there's no accessory apartment, it's 2 parking spaces. I think the building department's comment about 4, that would be the requirement. If there was an accessory apartment, then there's 2 for the primary residence, 2 for the accessory, total of 4. But that is being removed from the application. So I think you're back to a total of 2, which they're going to have more than enough because they're proposing a garage and there's,
If you
parking.
need that little pad on the end of it? Because I thought that was another parking space.
No, it's a pull-out pad to back out.
Yeah, pull-out pad.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
There's a minimum of
Turnaround.
there's a minimum of 2 parking spaces required, and they would satisfy that with the garage and parking in front of the garage.
Yeah. Right.
And as I remember, this is a private road because of, so you don't need anything from highway. Okay, so that would be the other thing in some cases for moving a driveway, but as a private road, you don't have that requirement.
And also just to address the storage, yeah, I mean, the problem also is the house has no basement. And I think putting a full basement in or underneath the garage would be probably more disruptive. So that's also why we are looking for storage area. Because there isn't really any place to store anything.
Okay, great. So again, we will probably talk about this in November if we get the submission materials. And is there anything else before we go?
Is there anything else we need to do?
We'll take care of it.
I mean, I would ask that the architecturals be submitted along with this site plan next time. So we
I
get a
thought
look.
they were.
No, so
Wait,
you mean to the building department?
I beg your pardon?
Do you mean to the building department, Jerome?
No, as part of this planning board submission.
Oh,
There was
they-
some building model shown on the previous submission.
There, I don't know why you guys didn't get this.
Yeah, we dropped them all off.
And
Yeah, so I think the real thing would be to make sure that you talk to Kirsten and make sure that we have the copies, both hard copy and soft copy that we need for this. And,
perfect.
We'll be all set.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Just to,
Thank you.
Was there something else? Okay, so I did notice that Bob Ebert just came, so perhaps we will circle back to Oak Ridge. If the board agrees, we'll circle back to Oak Ridge Common to their application. So let me just restate it. This is calendar number 08-21 PB. Oak Ridge Common, 920 Oak Ridge Common, South Salem, New York. And this is an application for a change of use from restaurant to residential. So, Bob, I'm looking.
I'll start.
Okay,
Michael Clarignano. I think we also have Phil Pine, managing partner of Smith Ridge Associates LLC with us, and the project architect, Bob Eberts. So this, can I share my screen here and we'll bring up?
Sure.
Right. Let's see if that works. Is that coming up for everybody?
No,
No.
I
Okay.
have it here, Michael, if you want the site plan.
Well, yes, okay, that's fine. Unless Bob can put it up. There's a more up-to-date site plan, but yeah, Jerome, why don't you do that so I don't hold you up?
Well, let's see.
I gotta unshare then.
I could share my screen if you'd like.
Yeah, why don't we have the most
Oh.
recent? So, okay, well,
Is this it or not?
No. Bob, can you put up yours?
Yes. Can you see that at this point?
No.
no.
Still on.
Well, how come we haven't got the most recent in the packet, the agenda packet?
I think Bob jumped on top of Jan's memo and started making changes to it.
Oh, I see.
And he wanted to, since we're in front of you tonight, really to try to take a sense of the board.
Yeah. Yes.
We wanted you to see that had the most information on it. Bob can bring that up.
Here we go.
Okay. So this is the second floor of Building 9B on the westerly side of the property. It's historically been restaurant uses, and Phil can tell you the history of unsuccessful restaurants there. This particular portion of the project is so well hidden from 123 that there's been a series of restaurants, despite the best efforts of everyone, including Phil, just haven't been able to make it. COVID didn't help, and the last restaurant, the Heights, closed. And so there's really no market for a restaurant at this location. That there's a proven history of that. There's never been any significant outdoor seating for any of the restaurants, and so it's just not an appropriate use. And of course, the demand now is for more rental apartments. So the idea here is, you see 9B, it's crossed hatch there. And the idea is to convert that second floor restaurant. It's still fully built out as a restaurant, but to gut that and to have 4 3-bedroom apartments. Bob, if you can, well, first of all, there's no issue on parking. There's ample parking. Bob did a water use calculation chart. Maybe he can put that up on the screen for you. So
Michael, are those 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartments?
no, they're going to be 3 bedrooms. The original application cited 2 bedrooms, but Phil has taken the temperature of the market, and 3 bedrooms are in demand.
We would actually just like the flexibility to check out really what the market wants. You're not going to get 4 3-bedrooms in there, but the flexibility, once we do start marketing these, and you'll see based on the water numbers that it shouldn't be an issue as far as that's concerned.
Phil, I'm sorry, not Phil, Bob, you had a separate chart for the water use calculations. Can we get that up on the screen? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think it's fair to say, while we're getting this out, that water is a concern
Yes.
at this location. And
Right. Okay. So here we are. So the existing approved use cabaret restaurant with 250 seats, the DEC standards say that you need 35 gallons per seat. So the current historic use is 8750. The proposed use, even if we can get in 4 3-bedroom apartments, which would be 12 bedrooms at 110 gallons a day, is 1320. So the total reduction in daily water would be 7430. It's basically 15% of what the current approved use is. So there's a substantial reduction in water use. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, or have Bob answer a question about that before we move on to the next visual.
Michael, the 250 seats, is that coming from a certificate of occupancy or a prior site plan approval?
I can't answer that. I believe it's from I know the most recent restaurant had 250 seats, but
prior site plan approval had 250 seats.
But I think one of the things that we would be concerned about is, while that this would be a reduction on paper, certainly, if the restaurant has not been that successful, or the series of restaurants have not been that successful here, the actual change might be less of a reduction than has been portrayed here. So one of the things that I think would be very important And we are looking at exactly the roles of people here, but to get before the change of use really goes through would be to get the approval from the water and sewer authority for this, which might end up being, I don't know, VRI or Delaware Engineering, or it might go all the way back to the town board. So, I think it would be important to get whatever administrative entity is really on top of this to say that they approve of this change of use. I saw, Jerome, you have your hand up.
Janet,
Yes.
Yeah, in that regard, Janet, maybe Phil or Bob can answer. Was this facility separately metered for water?
Yeah, yes.
So could we get a reading then of what a maximum, as Janet is suggesting, what a maximum daily might have been, or what some period of time that would somehow substantiate what was actually being used, and if it is in fact less, greater rather than what's anticipated with the apartments?
Of course, the apartments, that's a theoretical number as well, right? So it's
The apartments.
the apartments. You're looking at a New York State DEC standard for the apartments compared to a New York State DEC standard for a restaurant. So it's apples to apples. If you compare New York State DEC standards for the residential, and then you compare it to an actual meter reading for the restaurant, it's not a fair comparison. But I think like the capacity analysis for a plant is always based on what's on paper, what's approved. That could at one point be a thriving restaurant, and that's what the plant has capacity for.
I hear you, and I understand that argument, but I think it would be helpful to see, the success or failure of a restaurant will determine how many seats are used on a daily basis. But if you actually rent an apartment to, if it's a 3-bedroom apartment and you have, 4 to 6 people living in there, you have a better, you're pretty sure, even if it's only 2 people and guests, you're pretty sure that there's going to be some average use because the place will stay rented. So I think Jerome's idea, if we could get the actual usage for some period of time, that would be helpful. And again, I think it would make sense to have the authorities, whoever that is, to say, yes, we agree to this change of use. I do have, so it was interesting to hear it's rental, because I wasn't sure if it was, if somehow it had to be added to a condo or anything.
No.
Yeah, so that's helpful. And would you know whether you were going to put separate meters on this, or keep it as one water meter?
We could do it either way. If we keep it with the existing meters there, we can base it on square footage. We can sub-meter it ourselves. So, we wouldn't need to make any changes with the water plant as far as the metering if we just sub-meter it.
Okay.
Past the...
Right. Any parking lot or landscaping changes or anything for this?
No, they're not. Bob, can you put up the elevation page? I think it's A2, showing the north, south, and west elevations.
Yes.
So while Bob's finding that, the idea here is to try to get a sense of the board, whether you're in support of this idea of converting a historic restaurant space into rental housing. And if so, then Bob would go down to get to work and get to the details of trying to lay out 4 apartments and see how many bedrooms he can get in there. And obviously Phil would be participating in that design effort. And once the bedrooms were laid out, then Bob would be in a position to tell you what existing exterior windows would have to be changed, because in each bedroom, there would have to be an operable window. Well, what you're looking at now are the north and south elevations. There's not going to be any change to the facade, but again, depending on where the bedrooms fall, some of these windows may be swapped out or need to be swapped out for fire code reasons to have operable windows. The west elevation at the bottom is what you see from the pond if you're standing at the lake with your back to the lake looking at this building. And so you can see the second floor is the rental, would be the rental space. And again, some of those windows will definitely be swapped out for operable windows. But other than the change of windows, the facade won't change, the parking lot layout, the sidewalk layout won't change. So it's really a kind of an internal use, change of use. And so we'd like to, we're happy to answer any questions the board has, and then hopefully we can get some sense of the board of whether you're in support of this plan, and if so, we go back to the drawing board and answer Jan's comments and also get further along in the design stage.
What would remain, what use would remain underneath this?
Bill, you want to take that?
Right now it's approved. Right now it's approved for a fitness center. So until, we come back or have another tenant going in there, that's what the approval is at this point. The underneath part as well as the part in the front.
It'd also be helpful, Phil, I think you did this with the car wash, to provide that analysis of the capacity of the plant. I don't think capacity is an issue here. I think the issues have been water, quality. So
That's probably right. And just when you're looking at those bedrooms, what they're going to use, you're looking at 1,300 gallons. If we get all 12 bedrooms in there, which I don't believe we will, that's DEC numbers. The actual is going to be significantly less than that. I can probably go back to the townhomes that have been my 3 bedrooms that have closed for a year or two, get their usage, and I'm guessing it's going to be less than half of what that number is. So you're looking at 600-700 gallons per day. And I think if you put that in perspective where this whole thing is, those numbers, a restaurant will do significantly more than that when it's busy.
Right.
So again, it's under 1,000 gallons a day. Plant's 80,000 gallons per day.
I think it would be helpful if you identified, if you're going to do meter readings for, past meter readings for the restaurant, also include, if you have a 3-bedroom unit somewhere and you could provide a typical reading for a comparable residential unit, then that's a reasonable.
The problem with the existing restaurant, it's been closed since before the pandemic. I mean, we're going to go back.
Yeah, you have to go back.
Right.
Back, right. I
You
think
can't compare it
that's
to an empty restaurant.
right. Yeah, I think the idea of getting, maybe a couple of the units that have been recently done and comparing that is a fair comparison. I think all this would help. So
I want to make one more clarification. I said there'd be no change in the parking. The macadam won't change, but there'll be some relining of the spaces to provide the 4 required accessible parking spaces. And also the required recreation space would be 300 square feet per unit. And Phil is proposing to give free memberships to tenants at the Lakeside Fitness, which is located in Building 6.
Oh, okay. That isn't the one that's closed down below.
No.
No. Okay. I think that was facetious. I apologize. All right. So I think we should need to see these updates. And I think I think any change of use has to go to the Department of Health, so you probably have to get that. I'm not sure because you have your own, I'm not sure of that, but I believe it might be a requirement. We've had to had people go to the Department of Health with other changes of use. My sense, if you're asking for this, is that I'd rather have a building not sit vacant. That seems to make sense. But, you know, I do have those concerns about that we've talked about already about the water in this location. So that's one of it. Also, I will say that my screen is sufficiently behind that I have not been able to see any of the things that you've screen shared. So there may be some comments that come once we get that information.
Yeah, could you stop screen share, Bob, so we can see each other? Yeah, thanks. Janet, I want to say one other thing, not to beat a dead horse here, but in terms of the water use, I respectfully disagree with you, Jan, in terms of calculations. I think the DEC has established baselines for restaurants, residences, etc. We all use it perennially for design. And as long as there's not an issue of capacity of the system, based on the numbers that have been stated so far for restaurant and residents, I think we should stick with those numbers. Otherwise,
no, I agree, Jerome. Someone had made, I thought, indicating that they should compare actual reading meters or actual meter readings from the restaurant to the DEC standards for the residential, which I don't think is a fair comparison.
Right, that suggestion was made because you brought up the fact that that may not be an accurate counting for a restaurant that hasn't been at full capacity. But
I don't know that that's what I said.
Okay,
I think it was me, and I did say it because I really am curious. You know, a restaurant that hasn't been used a lot. I don't know so much. I don't.
Yeah, but
I don't know so much that it should be compared. I'm sorry. I'm not so sure that it should be compared against thoughtful. You know, the DEC or DOH, whoever had created the number of 110 per bedroom. I'm just curious, since we had something like 8,700 set up, how much actually what was the max that ever got used for the restaurant, or the average that got used for the restaurant, to see what the impact of the restaurant really has been on the water systems. And that would help us make some determination. Sorry, I think a couple of people were talking and I kept going.
It's just the capacity of the plant is based on the DEC standards, no matter whether that restaurant is open or closed. So all the numbers that we have for the plant is based on those multipliers. So, and even with those multipliers in place, there is not a capacity issue at the plant, as far as I know. It wasn't reported that way. You know, when we did the car wash, there was excess capacity, even with the restaurant at full occupancy. So
yeah, I think maybe your suggestion, why don't we just approach this the same way we did with the car wash and just provide a capacity analysis?
That's right.
Utilizing those accepted parameters.
Yeah, that's my.
So not looking at what the restaurant did at all. Just there's no bearing here.
I don't think that the actual meter readings is going to tell you much. Everything's based on actual or the DEC standards.
Yeah.
And we could get a restaurant in there, and if it was successful, could be doing those numbers going forward. So the history.
And the DEC numbers are historically conservative. So.
Right.
Okay, so again, I think that.
And Phil can correct me.
Go ahead.
Phil can correct me, but I think there's only one meter in that building, so that the use would not be separated just for the restaurant.
No, there's a separate meter for the restaurant. There's a separate meter for the restaurant.
Okay.
There's a second meter for the fitness center area. Two separate meters. But again, we're, you know, if you got a successful restaurant in there, they could be doing numbers significantly higher. You know, I wouldn't be coming back for a change of use or something like that. And so I will go back, we can go back and we'll look at I'll get the actuals from 4 or 5 of the townhomes here that are 3 bedrooms. And then come back and look at what the usage is, like we did with the car wash.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think the question was put to us, you know, it generally, would the planning board feel that this is an appropriate thing to consider to look at this change of use? Does anyone want to comment on that? Greg shaking his head. Jerome?
I'm good with it. Yeah,
Okay, Charlene?
good idea.
I'm
Okay.
good with it as long as we get the numbers about water usage and capacity.
Okay, at some point, I know this should get referred to the building inspector. I know that, I suspect that since there's still architectural work going on, this might be, I don't know, might be too early, or would we refer it just because there are no external changes? I don't know, Jan, do you have a view?
I think you should wait.
Wait, okay, we'll wait. So I don't think there's anything else that we need to discuss here.
So
Right.
are we going back to the town to get the approval from them on this capacity issues that you were suggesting earlier, VRI or?
Yeah, I think somebody, I think because there has been so much concern about this, I would feel more comfortable if some of the water management, I'll just call it, because I think we did the same thing with the car wash. We got a statement that said, you know, this was, they're aware of this plan and they're okay with it. And I think that's helpful. So yeah, it might be good to make sure that the town board knows about this change, just because they have been the top level over the water there, and they should be aware of the change. Or, you know, perhaps it's VRI or Delaware Engineering. I'm not sure exactly who the authority is.
Delaware and VRI, as far as I know, are consultants to the town board. The town board runs that plant, right? So I think you should go to the town board.
I would.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'd like to see it come from, but you know, you guys can tell me what makes sense to you. I think the town board should be aware of this because of the sensitivity of the subject.
I would agree, Janet.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. So you
And
hear,
if they don't like the idea of this, we go back to the restaurant?
you know, you could tell us what else could be done with it. I don't know.
No, but then it becomes a change of use. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
right.
I think the town board's looking at it from a strictly water supply standpoint, right? They're not.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to lament on the use itself. They're going to say you either need approval or you don't, and you got approval or you don't on the water issue.
I agree. The residential use here is permitted in a RB district as of right.
Yeah, and I think our referral letter should state that we've reviewed it and approve of the change of the residential use, so that they have some confidence that we've actually looked at that.
Well, I don't think we've approved the
We're
change
not
of-
referring. No, I think, look,
Yeah.
I think we've indicated to the applicant that from a change of use perspective, this isn't an empty exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Planning board's comfortable looking at it and with the concept, but that from the perspective of the management of the water district and whatever issues the change may entail, that's for the town board to look at. So I'd ask the applicant to go to the town board and you know, and they can communicate that in terms of the planning board's reaction, but what's the town board's take from the perspective of the, you know, the operation and you know, the water supply issues.
Yeah,
Okay.
the town board should be aware of this proposal and, you know, I don't want to surprise them. And so if I think that's part of it. They are the ultimate water authority here and they've been dealing with a lot of issues here. I think you can make the argument to them as well as you've made it to us about the reduction in use and therefore the demand upon both the water and sewer aspects of this proposal.
Okay, we'll
Okay,
do
so,
that.
so our approach is to go back to the town board, get their feelings on this, get them, if they are like, I think that it works, get them to approve that the residential will work with the water and sewer plant. And then we just bring that back to you.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Any
Right.
other comments from anybody else on the board? I mean, obviously, we want to see when you eventually get the architectural drawings through and know how many bedrooms it will be, but I think at this point, I think you've gotten what you need from us. And once we see all that, we will probably refer it to the building inspector for any compliance that, you know, we're not aware of that he might need to look at.
Very good.
Can we do that now? Refer it to him?
John recommended not yet.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I mean,
we haven't seen the final, we haven't seen what you're really doing. I don't know if there's, you know, I think he's going to say, make sure the bedrooms have these exits, but I don't know if there are other exits. We don't know.
I think he needs those architecturals filled up.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a building department review. That's not a
Yeah.
zoning review.
Right.
Building department, yeah.
Well, there's certain site plan things that he looks at with and needs to understand access.
Right, understand that's a zoning review, and I think that he could review that now.
Well, I think, look, I hear water's the main issue. The rest of the stuff will come
Yeah, no,
together.
I don't
We're
think
going to be able to
zoning, but-
build units that'll have egress and,
Yeah, it's life safety.
yeah, the site itself is a large site. It's not like we're throwing this into this tight. So the other things will work themselves out. So let's,
Yeah. And just to throw a word in at one of Janet's requests, to consider electric chargers in the parking lot for the rental units.
you know what, I will.
Yeah,
So
I'm,
that's been coming up a lot, frankly.
yeah, I mean, you have not, if you weren't going to tear up the parking lot at all, I wasn't going to suggest it, but, you know, I think people are looking more and more for bike racks and an electric charger.
No, we have bike racks.
You know, yes. And so, I mean, I'm saying that in general, I think that's
Right.
a more and more. So that was one of the reasons why I was asking if any change to the parking lot was planned. You know, or anything that would do that. So, okay. Well, we look forward to having you come back with more information for us. But in general, certainly feel that making a productive use out of an asset rather than having it sit empty is the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's it's tough commercial space back there. It's in the back of the shopping center. Really planned, it should have been residential to begin with.
Okay, and I guess I'm going to say one more thing is that it sounds like the lower story is also vacant. And at least my sense is if you decided to eventually do residential there, I mean, I know the 4 is below the number that requires one affordable housing, but if you were to somehow come in, you know, 2 months later with another
I
housing
think
thing, I would tend to add them up. I'm just going to warn you about that.
that's absolutely not a problem.
Okay.
That's fine.
Good.
Really is. I mean, I think if you get the proper use back there and whatever the regs say, they say, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, anything else from anybody on this? Okay, so with that, thank you. We will see you maybe in November.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Everybody
Thank
have
you.
a nice evening.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is calendar number 47-21 WP, calendar number 09-21 SW. This is the Beresford residence on 253 Silver Spring Road, South Salem, New York. It's the application for construction of a single-family home. And I believe I saw Mr. Beresford on. So I don't know
I
who
am.
is.
My bandwidth is very low. I can try it.
Okay, well, I mean, we have,
Paul Janik, I'm also affiliated with the project. And Rob Roselli should be on too.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm the
There he is.
engineer of record for the project.
great. Okay. So we have seen this. This is a slight change that does comply with our requirements to look at a septic system that is outside of the buffer. I think there are some small changes that are required. You know, I think Jan's memo indicated that the Department of Health needed to get updated. So actually, since this is very similar to what we saw before, maybe I will ask Jan to go through his memo on this.
Sure. The prior plan was reviewed, prior iteration of the plan was reviewed by the board in prior meetings, and the board was really focused on trying to get the primary septic system out of the buffer and the expansion where the primary was in the buffer. So swapping the primary and expansion areas so the primary was outside the buffer. The board conducted a site walk and the applicant resubmitted and did just that, swapping those systems. The Wetland Mitigation Plan has been submitted. We didn't have any comments on that. Really, most of our technical comments have been resolved. We had a handful of minor comments in our memo, really with regards to some technicalities on the stormwater sizing requirements and just following the DEC manual. There's little inconsistency between the architectural drawings and the site plan, where the architecturals call for a retaining wall in the rear yard. We didn't see that in the site plan. A couple notes to be added to the plan. Wanted to confirm, since this is a common driveway, that there's, you know, if there's any easements or maintenance agreements that need to be put in place, that they either exist or they will be put in place. But, you know, really, they addressed all of our comments, and I think the big one was the septic. I think it's a much better plan. They haven't yet, as far as I understand, received health department approval on switching the systems. They had previously received health department approval with the prior iteration. So we've asked just for a copy of that when they receive it. I don't suspect there'll be any issues. So really, you know, from my perspective, I think they're in a good spot. They were very responsive to the comments.
As I recall, also we heard that the neighbor was had no concerns, was happy to see this this development go forward. Is that correct, Mr. Beresford, sorry.
I'd like to see it go forward. I don't know about the neighbor. He's always been accommodating. He always asks me what I can do.
Okay. Yes, Jerome.
But Janet, based on Jan's reporting of the response, I would propose that this project go forward with administrative review.
Okay. I guess that would, is that a motion? And when you said,
I'd like to do a motion, yes.
okay. And Charlene?
I second that.
Okay, and I guess I'll make the obligatory question to Jan as whether you feel that this is appropriate for you to take on and administratively.
Yeah, no problem. They've really have responded to the majority of the comments, so they're pretty much at the finish line with us.
Great. Okay, so any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'm going to poll the board. Greg?
Yes.
Jerome?
Yes.
Charlene?
Aye.
And I also agree that this should go administratively, so the motion is approved. Thank you, and thank you, Jan. We look forward to this being concluded successfully. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is calendar number 64-21 WP. This is the Cutler residence on 21 Truesdale Lake Drive. And this is a application for a dock. And I thought I saw Neil on before, yes. Okay. Perhaps you'd like to tell us what the status is here.
Sure. We had a dock here when we bought the property. We removed that dock. It was in disrepair. So we're looking to replace that dock that we took out. Right.
And I see what you have done is you've submitted that the Truesdale Lake, whoops, I don't know which association, but the one of the associations has agreed that this should go forward. Is that? Yes,
we've submitted to the TEA, which is the association that we belong to, and they have provided their approval. They have we've met all their requirements and concerns.
Jan, do you have any comments on this?
We didn't provide a memo on this. It seems straightforward. They provided the dock approval or the association approval, which is usually a planning board prerequisite. I see no issues with it. I don't have any comments.
Okay, so I guess I would feel comfortable having this go administrative if someone wants to make that motion.
Sure, I'll make the motion. All right.
I'll second it.
Okay, so Greg made the motion, Jerome seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll poll the board. Greg?
Yes.
Jerome?
Yes.
Charlene? And she said yes, although didn't come across, but I saw her. And I also say yes, so we have agreed that the application for the dock will be handled administratively by Jan. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. And then, so we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is calendar number 28-21 WP, calendar number 04-21 SW. This is the Freeze residence at 54 Bishop Park Road, Pound Ridge, New York. And this is the application for the construction of a deck, garage, and office addition. I think we last saw this in April. And since then, the application has changed a bit, both the actual dock and deck. I'm sorry, not dock, the deck and the size of the garage and the office additions. Who is on for them?
Hi, this is Daniel Cassidy, the architect representing the Freeze. I'm trying to turn on my camera, but it seems to be malfunctioning right now, so I apologize.
No problem. Would you like to share your screen. I don't know if I'm assuming that'll work even without the camera, and perhaps take us through the application.
Sure. We share. You see the screen all right?
Yep.
Okay.
So once again, it hasn't come up for me, but so I may not be participating as much, but go ahead and discuss it.
Sure. I mean, the application remains the same. Essentially, we increased the, well, we attended to all the items on Jan's memo. And the only change here is some of the planning of the house, or I'm sorry, the planning of the garage office itself. And we had to move the staircase in rather than have an external staircase. So we increased the square footage a little bit and reorganized the layout. Fundamentally, it's a two-car garage below with 2 offices and common workspace, kitchenette above. And connected to the principal residence by an open breezeway. But from the previous application, all the parking remains the same, and the change is an additional 8 foot in length of the footprint. So 8 by 20, about another 200 square foot.
Okay. I think we did not send this to the building inspector previously because it was, well, I don't know why, but because we didn't send it to the building inspector. So I think one of the things we need to do is refer this to the building inspector. And I suspect that for the size of this, that you will be asked to go to the ZBA for a variance. Are there any other comments, or actually, does anyone want to look at any other plans, or should we ask for the screen sharing to stop so we can see each other?
Well, I don't know if anybody needed any more refresher. I'm happy to do a further walk through in further detail.
Well, could you bring up the plan labeled A-001.00, which shows a shaded version of the house and the addition.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot clearer for the board members to see this. Can you bring? If not, I can bring it up. I have it on my screen.
This is. Can you see A001?
We're seeing the survey.
Not yet.
Oh, sorry. I was going through the plans. I think I was sharing the wrong. You see that now?
Yeah, that's the one.
Gotcha.
If you could enlarge that a little bit as well, just zoom in a bit.
Sorry, I was shuffling through this document. I thought this is what was
right.
being shared. It's
So you're encroaching on the wetland buffer by, it looks like, maybe 5 feet, 8 feet. Is there any reason why you couldn't get it out of the buffer? I know in spirit you've done quite a good job of, but what's the rationale for having it overlap in the buffer?
The challenge of the site is that there are wetlands opposing from both sides. So in fact, the entire lot is within wetland setbacks. There's no way to be out of the wetland setbacks on this site.
It's a little stream on the right-hand side of the drawing.
Right.
So this, if you can see my mouse, or I can annotate.
Yeah, sure.
this is the buffer off of the stream, and this is the buffer off of the lake.
Right.
So we're the entirety of the site is within wetland setbacks.
Right.
So the siting really has to do with staying away from the required lot line setbacks and staying on the high point of the property, which traces around through here. The other thing to the CAC memo is that we had the trees surveyed on the lot. There was concern over the large oak. As you can see, the siting stays clear of the drip line from the 40-foot oak. And the intent is to protect and keep this tree.
Yeah, I think that's the 40-inch oak, but that's, yes, I do think it looks like it is clear of that that oak at this point in this version.
So
Okay,
the previous version was field measured. These tree locations are surveyed locations.
great. Okay, so perhaps if you could stop screen. Oh, are there any other things that anybody wants to look at this before I ask him to stop screen sharing so we can see each other?
Well, I just want to pursue my thought just a bit more,
sure.
because I think the brook is probably the more sensitive. I don't know how people feel about that. But in terms of the garage, I think we want, going forward, we want, John, have you addressed that at all in terms of spillage and any contaminants that might be that close to the brook?
Yeah, there's a site plan that's prepared by a civil engineer. I think it was Alfonsetti, right?
That's correct.
And they have a nice wetland mitigation plan. I'm not sure, the plan right now, Jerome, is focused on buffered enhancements along the brook and the lake, and then stormwater runoff from the roof of the structure. I'm not sure if they addressed floor drainage, which I know is a concern of some of the board members, so maybe that needs to be explored. But from a stormwater perspective and from a, an enhancement of the buffer, that they've honestly gone above and beyond, I think, with the enhancements.
Right.
Fairly significant.
Right.
So if you
And
have, yeah.
And I think that to the point, this will connect into the existing septic, which is on the lake side of the building. So that kind of keeps the garage from being put too much towards, if you were trying to move it away from the stream and towards the lake, I think what would happen is you would impinge possibly upon the current septic tank. Can't get too close to that. So I don't, I mean, maybe a little bit closer. I'm not sure the scale that I'm looking at here. But I think that gets difficult. So,
Right, and just to another point on this, part of where it's held is governed by the need to, if we would looked at elevations, is to have the two garage doors accessible. We'd have to start to bring the drive around the house to get into the garage doors if it shifted. And then we'd have to move further into the property to allow that clearance and start to impede on or encroach on these 24 and 30-inch maples that we want to keep intact.
Yeah. No, the plan looks good. I mean, I'm looking at the mitigation plan that Jan referred to, sheet. You might want to show that L-001. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so we were looking to do the mitigation within the area of disturbance. So, and then the additional areas that we need to mitigate at the water's edge and along the property line buffer.
Yeah, are you indicating a gravel turnaround area in the driveway?
Yes, and you can see there's the outline indicated of the existing turnaround. So it's is increased a bit. Like this is the line of the existing drive. So we're edging it. It's still pervious, and there's a slight increase of the area. But we've accounted for that in the calculations provided to the town.
Yeah, I think that the prior iteration of the plan had a couple of different walkways, permanent walkways down to the brook, and I think they've eliminated one of those in this plan, which I thought was beneficial.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's some kind of crossover over the brook, or does it go through a culvert? What happens there?
There's an existing culvert and an existing bridge on the property, which are shown on the provided survey.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that walkway connection makes sense.
Well, I would make a motion that we also go administrative on this project. It looks as though we've done a good job in the site plan, and as Jan feels comfortable with that, I would make that motion.
Okay, good. So perhaps you could stop screen sharing.
Sure.
So I do believe we need to send this to the building inspector as well. I guess I'll look to Jan and say, do you think, because this has not yet gotten ZBA approval?
I'm not sure I think one of the reasons why they're connecting the buildings is to avoid that variance. I think that's more of a permanent connection.
Right.
Is that right? If I could just
yeah, I think that's right.
Refresh my memory, Daniel, is that the purpose of the connection, to avoid the accessory dwelling or the accessory structure 600-foot requirement?
So at the moment, it's an open breezeway, so it would not be connected.
I think it would.
This is the general site plan, but part of siting the building is looking at the intent to incorporate the two in the as single building as primary residence. We're just working through some budgeting and future planning for feasibility, because we'd have to do the owner wants the siting, and they're intending to use it as the office, but they have two young daughters, and they know they're going to need to do some renovation of the principal residence at some juncture. So we're doing a little bit of future proofing in a way that they can do a renovation that links the two, but that'll involve another reconfiguration to keep us in the 4-bedroom range when they are connected.
So do you anticipate needing a variance?
At this juncture, yes. I'm again still working through some preliminary budgeting and architecturals with the owner. That was, we're primarily looking at siting and land use here. And as we advance the plans, we want to proceed towards variance and see how that goes, because we think that the ultimate plan for the house will be prohibitive at this stage, and won't be realized for another 10 years, perhaps.
So I'd recommend maybe you go through the ZBA process.
Yeah.
Because of the change of plan.
Well, I can tell you that you may be overcomplicating it, Daniel, that the open breezeway connection would eliminate the need for a ZBA. a variance.
Well, I think maybe what we
But
should do
you might want
is,
to do it just for future, for whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be up to Joe.
Yeah, I think we should
let's make,
refer
let's
to-
make the, right, let's make the building department make that call. So I would refer it over by consensus and see what results from that review. And if it's a ZBA application, it's a ZBA application.
so I'd look for a thumbs up to say, let's consensus to refer it to the building inspector. Okay. I think we have that. So thank you. Let's do that. And
Perhaps if it's determined that from the building inspector that a variance is needed, maybe the applicant pursue that variance, and if they're successful, then they would come back to the planning board at that point.
yes, and if they don't need it, then I think that's also good news that we can move expeditiously on the motion that Jerome made before. So I meant to ask, we had at one point discussed a site walk on this. I think it's kind of moved to such an extent that I am not sure it's required, but I'll see whether if people feel they'd like to go, I would certainly, I'm always up for looking at a new part of town. Anybody site walk? No?
Not in this case.
Okay. Nope. Charlene?
I don't think on this one, it is really moving along, and it seems that Jan is happy with what they've done so far.
Yeah, I think that's good too. I mean, I'm seeing real progress on this. It certainly has I think answered a lot of questions that came up on the first time through. So I think let's refer it to the building inspector and hope for expeditious response on that. So if there's nothing else, thank you. I think we're done with this.
Can I ask really quick then, pending, so the resolution from zoning, pending that, then the next, assuming it's favorable, then the next step is revisiting planning board for wetland permit?
Yes, and I won't prejudge, but I would say if you've got a ZBA approval, or if you get building inspector saying you don't need to go to the ZBA, I would expect in either case that the board would seriously consider a administrative referral.
Okay, that sounds good. And then SWIP, I just revisit with Kellogg Sessions, or?
Yeah, when you resubmit to the planning board, those couple minor items in our memo, you can address at that time.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, I realize I inadvertently skipped over one item. I believe I skipped it over, was calendar number 29-21 WP 03-20 WV. This is the Schilke residence at 3 Beaver Pond on South Salem, New York. That is on our agenda, but when they received the CAC and the memo from Jan, the Kellogg Sessions memo, they asked for this to be adjourned so that the owners and the consultant could work to improve this and respond to some of the comments that came from those two memos. So I would look to adjourn this to November if everyone agrees.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. The next item on our agenda is a wetland violation calendar number 01-21 WV, and I think I turn this over to Jan to discuss with us.
Sure. My office, as town wetland inspector, issued a notice of wetland activity violation to the owner of the property located at 400 Smith Ridge Road. This property is located immediately adjacent to the Pound Ridge Stone application that's is currently before the planning board. And at one point in time, this parcel actually was a part of that project. And then was later, as a separate lot sold off to a third, another party. But during that period of time, there was a wetland delineation conducted on the property. There were wetlands, there are wetlands on the property at 400 Smith Ridge Road, and wetland on that property is the reason why Pound Ridge Stone is applying before the board for wetland permits. There has been some modifications to the site without a wetland permit, mainly the deposition of fill material, earth and gravel within the buffer to establish an area that's really being used as like a contractor's yard for a tree service company. So that's the basis of the violation, the installation of the fill and modification of the site within the buffer without a wetland permit. I did meet with the owner on site, and the violation's been issued. I haven't heard back since, but that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. There's basically a tree service has purchased the property, I think some years ago, even several years ago, from the owner's indication to me. And then since that time has modified the site for, use as a tree service company. And there's been some construction and et cetera in the buffer without a permit. This is, I think, is the site, if some folks were on the board at the time, I think one of the buildings on the property that's immediately kind of adjacent to Smith Ridge Road. I'm kind of look at Jerome, maybe an old vet, or
Yeah.
something that was,
I think so.
it was like a hot button issue with the planning board during the review of the Pound Ridge Stone application, because the building was in poor condition. The board really wanted the then owner to make improvements to that building aesthetically. The building's still there. It's in pretty bad shape. But just for a point of reference in terms of, visualizing the property. You don't really see it from the street. It's heavily screened. And you don't really realize what's, the business that's taking place there until you kind of get in and see what's been done. But we do have wetland mapping from the original application, the original delineation. So that's helpful. And I don't suspect, looking back on those maps, that the wetland itself has been impacted. But the buffer has. I don't know if anybody's here for the owner.
Yeah, I'm here.
So what's the violation? The wetland, just say that again?
Depositing chips and other fill
Yeah,
material.
not really chips as much as there's a fill material. Fill material was installed for the pad of the kind of where they're using to store their trucks and to operate the business. There's probably been some clearing, perhaps. It's the site's been kind of been tidied up down below.
Hello? Am I on?
And, maybe the owner can. Yeah.
The owner is on, and perhaps he can
I am.
identify himself. Can you identify yourself? And,
Yeah, Brian Cooney. Can you guys see me?
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Okay.
And Mr. Cooney, you received the summons from Mr. Johannesson?
Correct. And I thought the next step was just to come to this meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. You're on target.
A lot of changes. I'm in the tree business. A few months away from getting my arborist license. I have my commercial applicator's license, and I understand a lot with runoff and drift and wetlands. And I've worked with, North Salem Open Land, and for the last 10 years preserving the preserves and knowing about invasives. So I have a general knowledge, for the past 15 years. I don't know what with a lot of the storms or when Dave Mormon put the application in and said it was a wetland, but I just think a lot has changed in that spot, especially with Phil Pine with building those 20 to 30 townhomes and disturbing a lot of the ground. At one time, maybe water ran differently into my property, but for the last 3 years, I've not witnessed any kind of wetness. I run in there with my dogs every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't run with them if they could, were going to get soaking wet and then hop back in my trucks. I just like to relook at that and maybe look at the property and see if we can take some soil samples and, determine that actually on my property that maybe it's not a wetland anymore.
Yeah, and I could share with you the drawing that was submitted in the original wetland delineation and survey.
Do you know, oh, sorry.
And it's not, it's fairly close to your property line. Like when we were standing there, Brian, and you're kind of looking down from 123 down below the property line to the left there. It's kind of hugs that. It comes onto your property just a little bit. So it's not like it was wet in that valley.
Gotcha.
And that's what I originally had recalled. So yeah. It's not like that whole bottom was ever wet, and it wasn't never delineated like that. It's a little piece from offsite that comes onto your parcel, but then the town regulates 150 feet off of that.
Correct. Yeah, I understand.
So you have some activity within that buffer, but I suspect that you did not alter the wetland itself.
Okay. And in fact, as far as the parking area, what was behind that building was, I don't know if it was Dave or whoever the previous owner was, but it was piles of fill. And we just flattened it and just parked and put some rocks. And that's the only thing, just to put our trucks in. Like you said, nobody knows we're there. I've been there for I guess I looked back, it's about 3.5 years. We stay pretty quiet. We don't work Saturdays. I mean, I lived in this town for 40 years. I love this town, so I'm not trying to disturb or start any problems.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just that area, when we walked down, I said, oh, it looks like some fill here, and it looked like some fresh stuff, and it was sloping down. And you said, yeah, I moved that over there. So I'm not saying you brought any material into the site, but there's clearly been some excavating that was done. And I'm not saying that it's, I'm just identifying that it's been done. Whether it's impacted anything or not, that's to be evaluated. So right now we're just kind of identifying what's there, and then we take it from there.
Okay. And as far as I know you said there was violations for the building. I have spoken with an architect and kind of came up with some drawings, and I've been working with a bank, and that was kind of my next step with you guys to revamp the building and see what actually I could use and what I could do with the space, because it's pretty hideous and it's very close to the road. And that would be my next, I don't even know where to start. I just started with the architect, and then I didn't know if I submit that to you guys or the building department.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously some improvements that need to be made to that building just to make it safe and usable, and it's either going to be knocked down or you're going to fix it, right, one way or the other.
I think it's beyond fixing.
Yeah,
I think it might need to be knocked down.
Yeah. So what I had mentioned to Brian during when we met in the field was, if you do have aspirations of doing something with the building, while you're going through the process to remedy the violation, it's probably a good opportunity just to identify what your future plans are. So, once, so that just for the board's benefit, that's, I think, where Brian's going with this when he's saying, oh, there's mention of violations of I think there was some building department history with that building, whether it was like determined to be unsafe or I'm not sure. But I said to Brian, maybe if you do have plans to do something with it or to demo it, whatever, that could get wrapped up into, the planning board wetland permit application.
Okay. So as far as this goes, what's my next step?
My suggestion, Brian, is I would suggest that the board carry this over to the November meeting, and then in the interim that perhaps you and Jan, or you and Jan and I could meet just to discuss the status of the violation, future plans, and try to develop a path forward.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so thank you, Judd. I think that is exactly the steps that need to be taken. And Brian, I think we can make this, something that ends up being a positive development on the land. So if you could meet with Jan and Judd, and we will plan to see you back in November.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before we let him go? Okay. See, shaking heads. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a good night. Okay, the next item on our agenda is calendar number 09-13 PB. This is Sight Unseen Farm, 1145 Route 35 in South Salem, New York. This is a little complex. It's the transfer of ownership of lot 28, but we had a site development plan approval for both lots 27 and 28, which also included a special use permit. And the need for special use permits for writing academies has since gone away. So now, well, perhaps, is there someone on for this application?
Yes, good evening. Jamie Splain of Hogan and Rossi for Peace and Carrots, which is the owner of JT Farms, which currently owns 1125 and 1145 Route 35, which, as you noted, is lot 27 and lot 28. There was a lot line adjustment in 2014, and it is actually the resolution pertaining to the lot line adjustment that makes note that the two properties are being used in conjunction with each other as a riding academy, and is the reason why we're in front of you seeking to have approval essentially to transfer ownership of one of the lots. We're not planning, there's no plan for any improvements to the building, and Neil Jacobs, I believe, is on the call as well, who represents the purchaser of lot 28. And Mr. Jacobs' clients isn't planning to add any buildings or any additional improvements. The plan is just to continue using the both lots as they have been used, but in separate ownership.
Correct.
Thank you.
It's like a pro forma matter. Judd, could you comment on that? Why is it here? Why is it?
It's here. It's kind of a quirk. You have the lot line resolution, basically in kind of a form of a subdivision approval that dictates that if there's any change in ownership, the applicant or the owner has to come back to the planning board. With regard to the requirement for a special use permit or site plan approval, that the special permit aspect of this has been mooted. This is a permitted use, and any site plan approval would have been embedded in the special use permit. So we have this sort of extant condition out there that continues to be operative, that the owner needs to come back by virtue of the condition the planning board imposed on the lot line change, requiring your approval. If the board deems that the transfer of ownership is acceptable, then I think what we need to do is just adopt a resolution, a formal resolution authorizing the change in ownership under that condition, and perhaps attach any operative conditions to the approval that the board would deem appropriate in terms of continued operation of the site, adherence to, horse management plans or whatever. But, It's really just a function of getting the board's okay on the transfer and directing Jan or I to prepare a resolution for adoption.
So I guess in accord with that, do we know if the new owners would continue to abide by the horse management plan that has some restrictions on how various aspects of a horse riding facility are handled?
The answer to that is yes, absolutely. We intend to. The only difference in the horse management plan, and Jamie can correct me if I'm wrong, is that on the original plat, I believe it simply mentioned the name of the one owner, and now we would have both names there, but it would obviously be the intention, I shouldn't say obviously, it's the clear intention of the new owner to completely adhere by that.
Great. Yeah. So with that, I think we can direct, as Judd suggested, we could direct the preparation of a resolution for the next meeting by consensus, and I think that is what makes sense to do. So,
if I may, Ms. Anderson,
sure.
we have a closing set for this thing for November 1st. And I don't know whether or not I'm going to have a resolution in hand, and it would be rather difficult for me to go forward with this closing unless I had the resolution in hand.
Okay. Again, I think it's fairly pro forma. How do we, is there a way to say?
We could adopt, the board could adopt a motion, which we could then incorporate, into the minutes, the preferred course would be to have a prepared resolution, but if there's a real time element here and the board doesn't have an issue with it, I think a motion would suffice.
Could we have a motion for me to maybe sign a resolution that would be prepared in that time?
Yeah.
Does that make? And obviously we'd have Jan and you look at it and I would look at it, but that I think would enable it to be a little bit more than just minutes on this.
Sure. I would move to authorize the preparation of the resolution based on the assurances that have been conveyed to us this evening by the new owner, and authorize you, Janet, to sign it prior to November 1st date.
Sure, Charlene.
We also make it subject to the review of Judd and Jan.
Well, I think once we're getting into this, and then we're starting adding these conditions, I think it defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do. Maybe there's a better way we can do this, other than like do something outside of a meeting and send it back and forth by email. I mean, I always think we go into dangerous territory when we do that. Well, I mean, is there this gentleman needs the context of a resolution, right?
Right.
Okay. In order to,
so what if we just simply resolve, a motion to adopt a resolution that the proposed change of ownership from Peace and Carrots LLC to Sight Unseen Farm LLC is approved?
I mean, would that impede on your closing?
No, I don't think it would. Jamie?
No, I don't think it would either. And I wouldn't have a problem with any statement even in it that, on the conditions as set forth in the horse management plan.
I would have no problems with that either.
All right, so maybe we can do it this way. We don't get outside of our routine and present issues.
I think it's simply going to be resolved that you approve, subject to the continued adherence by Sight Unseen Farm LLC to the required, to all of the operative provisions of the horse management plan.
Yeah.
Judd, I don't think it's just the horse management plan. I think that the subdivision resolution makes reference to certain special permits that were previously granted. So if we could say something like subject to the adherence of all prior conditions of approval.
Prior conditions of approval, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I
I
withdraw
think the horse
my,
management plan was just one aspect of.
One aspect, you're right.
so I withdraw my motion in favor of Greg's.
Okay, so I think what I heard, well, I heard.
Yeah, we may have to reformulate it.
Okay, so all right, so it's a resolution by which the planning board is approving the conveyance of Lot 28 from Peace and Carrots LLC to Sight Unseen Farm LLC. And that the approval is subject to Sight Unseen Farm LLC's continued adherence to all conditions and requirements imposed under a previously issued special permit, and or other approvals issued by the town with regard to the operation of the farm.
Okay. And do we have to restate that?
You have to say, as
Okay.
you said.
Yes.
All right, so I would
I hope
make,
Kirsten wrote it down because
I would make, well, I think we're being recorded, so that's good.
Yeah.
So I would make a motion to approve this conveyance as per a resolution and the terms of which will be determined and subject to approval at the next meeting.
I don't think that's
Oh,
what
no.
was said.
No, I think
It's not what
we're
was said.
saying, we're going to do it now and just reduce it to written form.
Yeah.
For
Okay, that's fine. So then I will withdraw my previous motion and I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as stated. Do we have it? Have we made the resolution? Have we technically made it?
Well, a motion's been made to adopt that resolution as.
Okay,
as
so
I
I'll make the motion in accordance with our legal counsel's direction.
Okay. And Charlene has seconded it. So we do have that recorded and we'll make sure that it's written correctly. So I will now poll the board. First, any further discussion? I will now poll the board. Greg,
Yes.
Jerome,
Yes.
Charlene.
Aye.
And I also say yes. We will get this. So the motion is approved. We will get this documented and we will try to make sure that you have that in advance of the November 1st meeting with a couple of days at least, so that
Thank you all. Thank you all from my side. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
all right.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is calendar number 08-14 PB. This is the Goldens Bridge Village Center, New York State, Route 22, Goldens Bridge, New York. This is a discussion item to look at some potential modifications to the existing shopping center. And I am not sure who's on the call for this.
It's John Sullivan here from Sullivan Architecture.
Hey, John.
Hi, John.
How are you guys doing? Nice to see you all again. I also have my associate Greg Dallop here as well. Greg will work with me on screen sharing and rolling to drawings because he's a lot better at that than I am. But the owners of the shopping center, who you probably all know, have owned this for a very long time. And they have recently retained my services to assist them in repurposing their site. They realize that it is it's dated and that it can certainly have significant improvements to not only for the shopping center, but for the community in whole. So one of the places that we begin is we'd really like to just drop the reference to quote shopping center. Hence why you may have seen on some of the drawings that maybe we presented here that we've read and labeled as the Goldens Bridge Hamlet Center. And behind that is the goal to create literally a hamlet, a pedestrian-friendly environment that is almost village-like, and to introduce not only retail and commercial, but residential on the site as well. and to see how we can take this piece of property and move it forward for the next decades, and to support not only the hamlet of Golden's Bridge, but obviously the town of Lewisboro. So you have before you a plan, and if we could, Kirsten, I'm not sure how we do this, but if we could allow Greg to screen share, and if it's okay with you, Janet, we'll put up the drawings and I can kind of walk you through the thought process here a little. So you see here, first of all, there are two potential master plans that are contemplated here. And much of this obviously has an awful lot to do with infrastructure abilities, and particularly in the way of septic and how we deal with effluent and so on, not only for the center that's there today, but for anything here that we're talking about improving. But you can see here, as you look at the plan, that the white building in the center is the existing structure that's there today. Acme anchoring one end with a bank and a series of retail shops, all the way, including a post office and some offices on the second floor at that easterly end of the building. So what's glaringly clear here, and I'm sure all of you see that, is that there's a concentrated effort here to improve the circulation on this site. The traffic is incredibly convoluted. From what I understand, and I've been told that there are incidents and accidents because of how it's structured and how it flows. So frankly, we began there, and we began with the opportunity to, particularly in front of the Acme Center, which you can see here at the sort of triangle shape in the center, is to create a village green, a piazza, as I coined it, and create a public space, a space that could be used for both, let's say, a farmer's market, organic markets, community events during obviously nice weather, potentially art displays, etc. It starts with a people place, a pedestrian-friendly site. And we've been able to do that and eliminate the traffic that sort of traverses this currently today, this space, and have the parking continue around the perimeter of the site. There is, and you can see up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, maybe Greg, you can point to this, I suppose. I don't know if my cursor identifies it. There you go. Is that we do have a drive lane there. You need that for emergency purposes. You just can't completely remove vehicle traffic, particularly emergency vehicles, that far away from a building like that. So there is a one-lane plaza here, not meant to be traffic. As you can see, there's only a few parallel parking spaces, really probably meant just for drop off and pickup, and the accommodation of those, let's say, particularly senior citizens who may be coming out of the Acme shopping store. So that whole space, whether it's softscape in a form of a grass or hardscape in a form of pavers, becomes a plaza, piazza. And from there, we branch out. And as we navigate up the site back down to the lower one, and we move up along there, currently today, there's very, very nice and comfortable wide sidewalk in front of those retail stores, which is really terrific. So we haven't had to change that. I will share with you that we do, as a part of this, and we'll get to that in a moment, plan to completely re-facade this entire retail building. We want to create and get it away from looking like a shopping center. We want it to have, almost the stores have individual shop facades. I mean, if I could borrow the reference, Crotona, or any village that takes on individual buildings so that it becomes more of just that, a village center, not a shopping center, a hamlet. In the center of that building, where you see the color in the middle there, is a section of the building that currently is only one story. The Acme store, of course, is high, and at the easterly end is the second story of where the commercial spaces are. We want to infill that and introduce a second floor of rental apartments to start to bring some residential into the site as well. Now, all the way at the easterly end of the site, you see a number of buildings up here. I'm sure you guys will recall that, I guess years ago, I wasn't a party to this, but that part of the site was granted site plan approval for an office building and perhaps even a daycare center. They did make some site improvements here. I won't call them improvements, but they're in construction. And one of them was that there is a septic system installed up here to service what was going to be that building. You see here that these here are individual townhouses. Each one of these is in a group of 8. And so here we see 8, 16, 24 units. Ample parking in front of it. I believe that for the units that we see there, that there's over 40 parking spaces. There are no garages. We'll look at architecture in a moment. But we see this whole little like neighborhood at this easterly end here, looking more like townhouses or row house. I'd even like to even borrow the vernacular of a brownstone look. It speaks more toward urban and toward village center, and with a sidewalk that connects all the way to the retail section of the site. We have an alternate plan, which is another site plan, which eliminates one of the buildings and suggests 16 units, only 2 buildings. And the reason for this is because the septic system that exists there today, and Ed Delaney from Bibbo Associates is our civil engineer, has informed us that the septic system that exists there today can support 16 bedrooms. They're all 1-bedroom townhouse units. So we like to introduce housing onto this site in addition to the site improvements themselves. Greg, maybe we can scroll down and we can move to the southerly end of the site where we continue that same type of vernacular. And you can kind of see the texture of the sidewalk as it brings and connects all of this. This is the side of the property here where today there's really nothing there. It's disturbed. You get the sense that perhaps there was supposed to be a building here at one time. But obviously with the improvements made to this and with the parking that you see along here, which exists, at least on the outside, that we'd like to introduce potentially the first floor retail, if that becomes such a potential use in time to come here, and with residential above. And it all terminates at the southerly end with a building at the end. We've identified it as a catering facility, perhaps a restaurant, so that we're anchoring this whole community here that's pedestrian linked, that has parking. This plan here, by the way, and we've not done an analysis yet on, like, for example, for you guys eventually would want to know what's your parking count, but there is over 300 parking spaces even with this proposed plan. And so this part of the site here needs further study because we don't have currently an answer for how we will address, for example, the septic. It's in the works. I'll just say that there is communication and dialogue going on with DEP and our consultants to see how and where we can address this so that we can bring this plan to fruition. So, Greg, let's take a look at, if you could put up the alternate plan, because as you guys can see, there's 2 buildings here at this end. So here's the alternate plan that perhaps eliminates one of those buildings at the south end, but still keeps the one that's tight to the existing structure. And back up at the top, you can see how we eliminated one of those residential buildings up there as well. There's the key to this is obviously, aside from the desire of trying to create a real sense of place and a real sense of community and a real sense of having multitude of users, i.e. retail, commercial, and residential on this property and give it a new life. It's all contingent, as we all know, far too often, on our ability to deal with our septic systems and our other means of which to deal with this. So the owners are very excited about this opportunity. I think, Greg, if you want, let's put up that one elevation page. This is just, I refer to my brownstone look. These happen to be, as you can see, 2, 4, 6, 8 units that are elevated up above the sidewalk just a little bit, that are relatively small. They're only about 15, 16 feet wide. They potentially could be constructed from modular methods of construction. We'll see when time tells, but it has a street presence. It's not just an apartment building. And obviously right now the game plan was that this would be rental housing. And we want to support the retail here and even enhance the retail. I don't think I'm going too far out on the limb when I say that the clients are actively continuing dialogue with Acme. They seem to be quite interested in wanting to stay here and significantly upgrade their store. And so there's dialogue going on with them too. But really the key behind this whole thing is getting back to the point of just trying to create a village of Golden's Bridge and create a community space that could be, very, very beneficial for the town. And not just for the handful of units that we may add to this here. Obviously, we have the benefit of the train nearby. So to me, there's opportunity here. And we wanted to just share this thought with all of you to get your reaction. We have had some discussions with some other members of the community who asked us to come before you and to at least start some dialogue with the board. And most likely, in short order here, we probably will come before you with a quote phase 1 site plan application, using this as a basis of a master plan and seeing where we can create at least an initial start to this, which may very well be the parking and the site improvements and the piazza, as well as introducing some of the housing units. So I know it's late. I'm sorry if I went on a little bit longer than I wanted to, but we just want to take a few moments to just share with you how excited the owners of this property are about potentially what we could do here. So that's it. Sorry if I caught you all a little bit like off guard here with this at this time of evening, but maybe you all think about it and we can have a discussion when we make an application and we can see where we go from there.
Well, if you do want some feedback, perhaps if you stop screen sharing and we can all look at each other, I think we could probably provide some. I maybe will start off by saying that I like the sense of trying to build, street smart sort of houses or street, townhouses. But it seems like there's parking lot really close to a lot of these. And I don't know whether there could be a little bit of maybe a gap between the sidewalk and the houses, or a little gap between the sidewalk and the parking, or something to feel like there's a little bit of, it's not just looking at the parking lot. And I think your elevation actually shows maybe a little more trees than I had sensed that would really be there when I looked at the plans. I
think they are, and you're right. Listen, I mean, good questions there, and it's probably tough to realize, your points, and your points are well taken, by the way. But I think that you'll notice that the parking. One of the things that we did here is that the entire curb length around the site now has parallel parking against the buildings, or against that side of the parking, and perpendicular on the other side, which is not what exists today. You don't find too many villages that really have that. More of an urban plan is more of a parallel parking situation. So you don't have headlights, for example, shining right into whether it's a store or a dwelling. But we can certainly look at that and creating some sort of space separation between sidewalk and a building face.
Yeah, I think to continue with that. I don't really see a space for, you talk about community, so maybe a little place for people to sit and get together, a little community area might be helpful, if there are going to be, I don't know if with 1 bedrooms, there might not be children there, but there's not really a gathering spot for people, except I guess all the way, I shouldn't say all the way down, but in front of the Acme. And, so maybe there's a room for a little, plaza or off area, especially if you have to stick with the 16 units on this north end. And then the final thing that really struck me on this was, as you indicated, the access or the closeness to the train station is a benefit, but there's no sidewalks or anything that seems to allow people to not walk in the driveway entrance to get in and out and maybe get over to the train parking lot, which gets them to the stairs that gets them to the train. So I really would think that there's a need to do some kind of entrance or pedestrian in and out at that area.
Solid point.
All right, so if I may, so I think Janet's points are kind of more of a micro analysis, and I think they're probably appropriate when we get a site plan review. So I'm taking this as more of a concept thing, and I think that's probably how you intended it. You're looking to modify what we have drastically, and I think for the better. And something along these lines of making this center into some sort of a village has been talked about for many years. I've lived here for 29 years, and we've been kicking it around for many years. So I'm very happy to see this. The idea of introducing residential units into this area is interesting. May I ask what your concept is with regard to the type of units you would be introducing here, and like what sort of price point you'd be looking to have?
No, it's way too early for us to state that. But listen, they're small. They probably are more directed toward workforce housing, because
like 1 or 2
small.
bedroom type things. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. To Janet's point earlier, I mean, would this be an environment that a family would live in with children? Maybe. I mean, people love living in village environments. Yeah. So, but to that point, they're relatively small, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and we haven't discussed what a price point would be yet.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I think it's a great concept. I think it would be great for the Hamlet of Golden's Bridge. I think it would be great for Lewisboro. I think it's very innovative thoughts, and I'd love to see you flesh this out. And I think some of the things Janet said are great, and I'm sure you'll take those into consideration, and along with many other things. They've been talking about sidewalks in Golden's Bridge for years. No one's really done much about it, but this is something that could possibly integrate that idea, into your situation. So I see a lot of promise with this.
Yeah, good points, by the way. And the whole link to the parking lot, and I'm sure that you have all, like many of us here in Northern Westchester, look at this, and as many times as we drive past it, I wish I could plan where the parking lot is on the corner. I mean, what an opportunity that piece of property is right there. And what do we have? We have a gigantic parking lot with barely any trees in it. And you just ask yourself, we wonder, is that really going to be used again, maybe the way it was in the past? And maybe as a bigger picture here, and I'm thinking way outside the box now, right, is what can happen at that site that would then coordinate with this piece of property and really start to create a sense of place.
Is that Metro North's property though, or is that ours? I don't remember.
MTA, I think.
Yeah, I don't think we own that. That's why it's so wonderfully flat and painted with parking stripes and not developed like along the way. I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlene, I think I could see.
Yeah, you have to mute. You're muted.
I didn't see any recreational areas. at all. Maybe I didn't notice any.
No, there would be no recreation in terms of like, community space or something. We kind of consider this like I said earlier, more of a village environment. Can we put in little pocket parks?
Little pocket park,
Yeah, that other than the village green, which is a pretty large space, by the way, that's that area there. That's all, like I said, softscape, hardscape, that is a sitting area. That will be a park space, not just for potentially having a farmer's market, during the good weathers, but it is an outdoor sitting space. And we can, I don't want to bring the site plan back up again, but we did have a small little pocket park, if you would, between those townhouse buildings on the easterly end of the site. But regardless, you guys, you're raising some solid points, and we can look to do that.
Yeah. So, John, it's interesting. I don't know if you're here earlier, but there's at the other end of town, in Vista, there's a mixed-use commercial residential development, the Oak Ridge, that's taking their restaurant and now converting it into residential use. So now you're creating a new restaurant here. Obviously,
we need to eat, Jerome, right?
Well, we need to eat, but yeah.
I know. Yeah.
And it's one thing, well, it's maybe a different situation. Maybe it's closer to the road. As Greg had said, I think it's commendable to create this sense of place, and you said, John. And I think concept is wonderful. I think it needs to be fleshed out and when maybe brought to us at an earlier hour so we can, and before the meeting, so that we can digest it. I do think, though, that in terms of the residential treatment, the East End does a better job to my mind, than the South End. There's a chance for, there's an option of leaving the house and going to a commercial, as opposed to walking out the front door and being right there, which is true in a lot of downtowns, not so much in Katona, because Charles Department Store is now putting apartments on top of their department store.
So is Whitlock, and so is the old fire station.
Yeah, and
but anyway,
it doesn't mean that it's it's desirable, or I mean that's my choice. I wouldn't want it, but obviously there are people that would, and I think as somebody alluded to before, maybe not. Maybe these could be a percentage of these could be affordable units, which would be a nice thing as well.
Yeah.
But
we may want to talk about that, Jerome, because we are all getting 40 or 50 affordable units right down the block. So, but that's a question for another day.
40 or 50.
And you know what? If they're rental units, by the way, and considering the size that they will be, they probably almost fall into that category. But listen, who they're designated for. We can certainly have a conversation about that later. We're just trying to get an integrated community of both residential and commercial and retail, so that we break away, as I said earlier, from the facility looking like it wants nightlife. It wants people there as well, right? Not just a quote shopping center. So I mean that was kind of the goal of my clients who look that way. We can certainly adjust the residential units here. And there aren't that many, by the way. There are only like 12, above that one building that we have at the southerly end. So we're not talking about a large community here. And
yeah.
But in any
just one other comment: the parallel parking. I think for people who living up here, excuse me.
You're going to tell me people don't know how to do that, Jerome?
A lot of senior folks, they have inability to judge space, and we've had accidents on the site. True, they were perpendicular parking. They drove up on the curb. I'd be concerned. And another thing that's happening in a lot of urban areas, you're probably aware, streetscape is changing. There's more outdoor dining, and there might be a restaurant, a small pizzeria, or there was one there before that wants to dine out. If you have surfeit of parking, I'd stop and think about more landscaping or continuation of the piazza, feeling. By the way, there are no piazzas in Ireland. I don't think they have that. How'd you catch up to that idea?
I'm an urbanist, Jerome. I think you probably know that.
I'm just being facetious. Yeah.
I know you, but
anyway,
by the way, I'm half Italian. By the way, just to clear that up.
It's in the right direction. I think it's a commendable.
Great.
Yes. So did you get kind of what you hoped for from us? I think it's great to get introduced to this early on. So we have some introduction before we see it the next time. I think that you're hearing positive things about trying to expand and make this more of a really mixed use entity. So what more are we giving you, the kind of information you wanted, or do you want something more from us? Want to ask some more questions?
How about final site plan approval?
Okay. I think that's a push.
But seriously, yes, thank you. And you guys have made some good suggestions about the open space, and we'll get through this, but we want to move this forward, and we'll no doubt adjust the plan as we do so along the way, but with the goal in mind of really truly trying to make this into a community space, one that the residents of the town, as well as Golden's Bridge, feel becomes their little like Hamlet and village. And that's really what this was about.
Yeah, and I know this is in the category of nits, but rather than the grand scheme, but I think some kind of consideration of potential bicycle stands, EV charging, all those things are little things, but I think they might be helpful to see as the plan develops along the way. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'm sure we'll see you guys soon.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I think if that's...
Can we just jump in for a quick second?
Hey, John. Hi.
So
I don't know.
I'm the property manager. I'm the property
Yes.
manager there, and
yes,
we will have EV charging stations next month.
Seven EV charging station.
They're on schedule to be installed next month.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. That's great
Okay.
news to hear. Okay. I think that was all on that. So the next item on the agenda is calendar number 07-95, the Glen at Golden's Bridge, Park Street and Park Street Extension in Golden's Bridge. This is a discussion of the Highway Department approximately 590 square foot turnaround. And I'm going to ask Judd to address this for us.
Yeah, very quickly, Kirsten and the board received an inquiry from a resident requesting the planning board to take some action to open up this small paved area within the Glen to parking. And I guess asking for the planning board's guidance or direction as to what the planning board can do relative to the use of this space for that purpose. And I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that we received it, but this is not a planning board matter. There was a subdivision approval that was issued by the planning board years ago. The plat set aside this area for purposes of dedication to the town. With the filing of that plat, that dedication, it's an offer that's irrevocable. It's really, bottom line, to the extent there's a question as to how that area is to be utilized, it's a town board decision. It's not for the planning board. The planning board has no ability to entertain or do anything with the request. So just wanted to advise the board of that fact and acknowledge the receipt of the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions about that comment?
It's too bad that one of the town board members was on just a moment ago and then left.
Yes, probably heard that. Okay, so the next item on our agenda, and thank you very much, Judd. I really think it helps to get that clear and to people who might be listening on YouTube as well. The next item on our agenda is to have a discussion of the meeting dates for 2022 so people can start planning. And Kirsten had distributed the proposed set of dates, and they're really sort of an either or for both January and February. The January date, the first one is there. Actually, Greg suggested that we move our meeting early so that we could continue to meet by Zoom. While we can hope that the legislature will meet, I think they start in early January and can make an amendment to the open meeting law. I'm not sure we can count on it. So that would be January 11th instead of January 18th. The second discussion is, so maybe we should finish that. Is everybody okay with meeting on January 11th instead of January 18th? And just show me thumbs up if that's okay. Yeah.
Just give me a minute, will you?
Sure.
January 11th.
I mean, what it does is move the resubmission deadline a little bit earlier, but I suspect that there's not a lot that gets done between, that Christmas week, holiday
That might,
week.
yeah, seems like that might work out well, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a conflict. Second Tuesdays, I have another meeting. But I'm just a participant. I can't change it. So I might have to miss that meeting. Yeah, I missed just that one.
Well, then maybe what we should,
I don't think that's a problem.
I hate to potentially be without a member for that
Well,
one.
we've been without a member for several months now, and it hasn't
Right.
made the progress.
I know, I'm gonna have to address that. Okay, so I guess we will stick with January 11th. I should ask Jan and Judd if you can both make those dates too.
I have to, I
It's
wasn't.
Jan's birthday, by the way. January 11th.
I just
Oh,
got to check the school schedule for February. I wasn't able to do that before the meeting, but I'll figure it out one way or the other. I bet it's that third week,
Well,
and I know we're going to be away.
I think this time it's unusual in that President's Day is February 21. So
Maybe it's the.
Yeah, that's right.
So if the school board, well, okay, so maybe we defer this until next month and
Everyone gets a chance to check their schedules.
check your calendars and schedules. Okay. All right, so with that, then I look for a motion to approve the minutes of September 21st, 2021.
I will make that motion.
Do we have a second? Charlene, okay. Any discussion? Oops, no, I can't do that anymore. I'll poll the board. Greg,
Yes.
Charlene,
Aye.
Yes.
Jerome, and I also say yes. Okay, our next meeting date is November 16th. So with that, we will, I look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Second.
We'll all make the motion and we'll all second it.
It's a long meeting tonight.
Well, long for us, but it's not, I mean, I certainly know we've had longer ones.
I think it moved along very well. It was well officiated.
Oh, thank you. I had to keep closing off because my screen kept freezing, so made it a little more difficult. But okay, so anyway, I think we have Greg moved and Charlene seconded that we adjourn the meeting. This we can do all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. And good night, everybody. And
All right.
thank
See you
all
next month.
for your attention. Yes.
Good night.
Good night, all. Thank you
Good
again.
night. Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Phew.
Phew,